Alright, let's look at the homework 4.1, problem number 10. Alright, so we want to find the absolute maximum and the absolute minimum value of this given function here over the closed interval from 0 to pi over 2. Alright, since f is continuous on a closed interval from 0 to pi over 2, we can use the closed interval method. Alright, so let's do that. Alright, first we have to find critical numbers. So take the derivative. So f prime of t is equal to, alright, 2 derivative cosine of t is a negative. So 2 sine of t. And the derivative sine of 2t would be plus cosine of 2t, but you would have to multiply by 2. Right? So we have that. Then, so this is the derivative, and then we want to simplify a little bit. So this is going to be equal to, right? First, you have 2 is in common. So this guy is in common, and that guy is in common, right? So I'm going to pull that out. So you have a 2. All right. Then you have, let's see, cosine. So it's going to be negative sine of t. All right. Plus cosine of 2t. So what's cosine of 2t? Cosine of 2t is equal to cosine squared of t minus sine squared of t. So that's one of them. But since it's already written in sine, maybe we should write the version. So cosine squared is 1 minus sine squared. So 1 minus 2 sine squared of t. Right? So this is going to be plus 1 minus, right, plus 1 minus 2 sine squared of t. Alright, so I'm going to actually pull out also negative sign, right? Then I'm going to write 2 sine squared of t first, and plus sine of t, because you have to negative signs pulled out, so it's a minus 1. Alright, then we can factor this guy out. So you have a negative 2, and factor it out. You can write it as a 2 sine of t, and you have a sine of t. Then I would say plus 1 here, minus 1 here. Right? So 2 sine of t times sine of t gives you 2 sine squared of t. Right? Then you have a 2 sine of t times 1 and minus sine of t, which gives you plus sine of t. And a negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. So that will work out. Right? So we set this equal to 0 to find the critical numbers. Right? So this would give us, right, so either sine of t equals 1/2, so 1/2, or sine of t equals, so negative 1 from there. Alright, so then we can find the angle from here, so t. Alright, so we want to find the angle that makes sine equal to 1/2. Alright, so that would be 30 degrees or pi over 6. So pi over 6. Or 5 pi over 6. Alright, and I think that's about it between 0 and pi over 2. And we want sine of t to be negative 1. So that would be t is equal to 3 pi over 2. Right, so it's a 270. And I think that's it between 0 and pi over 2. Right? Then what we want to do is, so those are the critical numbers on the interval 0 and pi over 2. So we're going to check all of them. So here we look at f of 0. And the next one would be f of pi over 6. Next one is f of 5 pi over 6. And next one is f of 3 pi over 6. And then last one is, I was looking at it's a pi over 2. I thought it was 2 pi. So actually we don't have to look at these. So pi over 2, we have to go back, sorry about that. So 5 pi over 6 are actually too big, so we don't need that. And between 0 and pi over 2, so this actually never becomes -1, because 3 pi over 2 is too big, so we don't have it. All right, so we just have to look at the 0, pi over 6, and we have pi over 2. Right, so let's find those values, right, because it's between 0 and pi over 2. If you plug in 0, cosine of 0 is 1, so it's a 2 plus sine of 0 is 0, so this is 2. All right, cosine of pi over 6 would be square root of 3 over 2 times 2, so it's a square root of 3. And then you have a sine of 2 times pi over 6, so sine of pi over 3, that would be square root of 3 over 2, right? So this is going to be, let's see, 3 square root of 3 over 2. All right, then when it's pi over 2, so cosine of pi over 2 would be actually 0, right? Then sine of pi would be actually 0, right? So this guy gives us 0. All right, so let's see, which is larger? 3 times, I think this is going to be larger. So the largest one is this guy. So this is the absolute maximum here. Right, so this is a 3 square root of 3 over 2. Right, then the smallest value is 0. No, actually, sorry, I put the other way around. So max is 3 square root of 3 over 2 and a 0. Right, so let's type it in. Alright, so absolute minimum value is 0. And then you have 3 square root of 3 over 2. 2. Alright, let's check the answer. Alright, it came back and looks like we got this one correctly. Alright, that's it. I hope that this was clear.